Mike, I'll start with a big casting question for you because this movie features a rather large ensemble, and it's the type of ensemble where every single role matters. So, of all of the characters in this movie, which was the easiest to cast, where it was like the right person just magically appeared? But then I also want the opposite, the one that took the most legwork to find the perfect fit for.
Oh, wow. I'm utterly unprepared for that question. I think,
Do you want me to leave? You can just you can speak for
clearly it was Tom. I just won't say which. No, it was this one. The right actors fell in very quickly. I think we had one wonderful conversation, and Tom was. I think you're the first person to sign on. So everyone kind of fell in behind him. I think. I knew I was writing with some people in mind. I mean, I knew Kate was going to be in the film, and I kind of knew where I wanted her. The one who took the longest to find was Benjamin. That was the part we had the hardest time kind of finding, and it was really, we looked for actors who could dance, and spent a lot of time doing that. And then it took us too long to realize we should look for a dancer who can act. And Benjamin was the last piece of the puzzle.
You struck gold with him. He's so good. So, Tom, I got a big two-part question for you as well, because the character you're playing in this story is unlike any type of character I've ever seen in a movie before. So it was making me wonder how that impacted your prep work. What is something about how you prepare for a role that stays the same from project to project? But then also, what is something about preparing to play Chuck that called for something one of a kind?
It was, to try and break it down is actually really interesting, because my connection to it was so instinctive and immediate. And I haven't had this many times in my working life where I read something and I remember exactly where I was and exactly the time of day that I read it for the first time and how it made me feel. And then our first conversation. And it's like a kind of like, there's a feeling of intense excitement, because I thought, I know who he is. And it's a really quiet whisper that's just, I know what to do. And the film and the character actually speaks to something I have long believed, and is kind of why I'm an actor, truthfully, which is I do think that every human being contains extraordinary range and breadth on the inside. And I've always tried to resist the external reduction, like that, where in my life, in my friends, in the people I love, like, don't let anyone tell you who you are. Only you know who you are. Like, and you contain multitudes. No one is one thing. You're free. You only have one life, and so express all of that interior complexity. And so I suppose that was the thing that excited me, was that in the external world, Chuck seems easy to read. He seems predictable. He seems like someone we know. He's almost part of the furniture. Someone, in a gray suit with a briefcase, Mr. Businessman on his way to the business conference and staying in the business hotel. But on the inside is a universe of people, of memories, of experience, of love, of loss, of joy, and of dancing. And I just loved him. And then really the preparation was about the dancing. I wanted the dancing to be as free and as also precise. I wanted it to have this, Stephen King writes that, was there ever a moment in his life that he had danced with such elan and such freedom, even as a teenager when he had no headaches and no muscle pain, that this is a moment, an explosion of joy that is completely unrepeatable. And so my work preparing to play it became about this, really trying to infuse the dance with as much clarity and as much joy and as much shape and magic as I could.
bursting at the seams with joy and magic. And it's why it's one of my favorite sequences in the movie and why the whole thing comes together so exceptionally well. Mike, one burning question I had for you was finding the right design for the Charles Krantz billboard. Is what we see in the finished film always exactly what you had in mind from day one, or did that go through any evolutions to find the right look?
Oh, it certainly evolved, absolutely. It ended up being ultimately designed by Daniel Danger, who does a lot of the graphics for the King cast. And I think, as someone who's so connected to King's World, he just really zeroed in on it. The basic layout of it, though, existed as it was, from the very, very start. And I remember when we did that shoot for it at the very beginning.
It was amazing.
It was wonderful. And finally seeing Tom step in behind the desk holding the mug was the first time it ever really came to life for me. But that image, I adore. It's on my wall at home and in my office now. I can't get away from it, and I prefer it that way.
Perry, do you notice, I'm sure you have because you're very insightful about the detail, but do you notice the emotional expression of the billboard changes through the film?
I swear that is the next bullet point that I have. Figuring out the right point to have the expression change just a little bit. Like there's the part where Marty's watching the TV and the smile fades just the slightest bit. Feels like it cuts through every time I watch the movie.
There's an image right before it leads into the scene with Chiwetel and Carl Lumbly. It comes off of this vertical banner and kind of booms down over the traffic. And if you look at Tom's eyes, there are tears in his eyes there. It's coming to the end. And the smile is holding, but there's so much more behind it. It's lost that kind of casual pleasantry that you felt in the beginning. And there's so much love and ache and regret and inevitability in it. And that's the image that I have at home. That's the one I kept. Yeah.
It was an extraordinary thing to do. It was the first thing we did together on set. When I got out there to Fairhope, Alabama, was we did the billboard shoot. But we were, if I remember, we were doing stills, but we were also doing the motions as well. We were doing the windows in one sequence, and I was sat behind the desk, and it was my first experience as Chuck in the costume with the suit and all his things, and in the space of, 30 minutes, I felt like I had lived an entire life because we went through a range of so many different emotions and feelings that of feeling happy and relieved and loved and generous and compassionate and interested and curious. And then some of those things, I can remember the experience so well, like the curiosity fading and an awareness creeping in of ending and finality and solitude and people receding and suddenly feeling alone and lost and full of grief and sadness. And then coming back out into sort of acceptance of that, which has another kind of serenity. It was like an unrepeatable experience. I remember it so vividly.
It was day 0 on the schedule. Yeah. It wasn't even day. It was labeled as day 0, and it was really what a way to dive in.
Yeah. Together,
it was like let's do every emotion we can kind of think of. Yeah. Let's live a life behind a desk for this shoot. It was incredible to watch him do it. It was moving us. We hadn't even started shooting yet, and I was already starting to cry. It was great.
But I wanted Mike to have all the choices. I knew from my first reading of the script, Mike had sent a letter saying, I'd love you to play Chuck. And of course I was reading it, and just like Marty and Felicia and everybody else in the first act, Chiwetel and Karen and Matthew and all those people, I was like, who is Chuck? Who is this guy? And so I knew that the billboard had to do a certain amount of storytelling. It had to be enigmatic and also ordinary, but also extraordinary and then ubiquitous. And that there was a sort of threat almost to that ubiquity and almost a threat to his indifference. The world was coming to an end and he was smiling seemingly benignly from behind a desk, that had to be real, but also hyper-real or surreal.
And it had to say everything and nothing at that point of the movie. I remember there were dozens of images just of Tom's expression that we would sift through in the office after the shoot, trying to figure out, is this a good billboard image for the beginning? Is this more for the end of the act? How would it fit? Trying to narrow it all down. But yeah, it was pretty amazing.
You absolutely nail every single detail in this film. You already know this, but I'll just say it again so everybody else hears it again. Just an exceptional adaptation. I've watched it a whole lot. I will continue to watch it over and over. Huge congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.